What's up, everybody? My name is Paddock, and today we're going to talk about what causes squeaks and squawks on the saxophone. Unfortunately, playing squeaks and squawks comes along with the territory of playing a saxophone. No matter how good you get, you're still going to have the occasional squeak or squawk. However, if you understand what is causing these squeaks and squawks, you can definitely minimize the problem. And it basically comes down to three main culprits. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what they are and how to fix them. The first and most common is when your fingers don't all go down or come up together. And you will hear that a lot going between a C and a D. So when you're going between a C and a D, you're going between this finger, just your second finger, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If one of your fingers doesn't come down at the right time, you will definitely get a squawk. So this is what it should sound like. And if I make this finger come down a little bit late, I'm gonna get a squawk there. That's because the air is trying to go through my saxophone all the way to the end, but this is open a little bit too late, so my saxophone freaks out and it squawks. So whenever your fingers are coming down a little bit late or going up a little bit too fast, you're gonna get some type of squeak or squawk. Now, I just demonstrated this between a C and a D, but this can happen on any note that you're switching between if your fingers do not come down or go up clean. This is going from a C to an E. This time this finger was a little slow. I'll get close to the camera so you can see what's going on with my fingers. Watch this finger. It's really clean. Now this finger is going to be slow. But this could happen on any notes that you're switching between if your fingers are not all going up or going down together. So you want to make sure that you're super clean with your fingers. The second thing that can cause squeaks and squawks is your tongue. If it is in the wrong position, you are definitely going to get some crazy sounds. So if I'm trying to play a low note, but my tongue isn't down low in my mouth in the ah, like I'm trying to play a low note position. If my tongue is up high, like an E position, when I go to play that low note, I'm going to get a crazy sound. And that's because I'm directing the air into my saxophone in the wrong position. So instead of being high up in my mouth, I need to be low down in ah, like I'm trying to talk low. If my tongue is down low, those low notes will pop out really easily. If it's up too high, I'm going to get all kinds of crazy sounds because the air is not getting into the mouthpiece correctly. Now the same thing happens with high notes. If I'm playing a high D, like my palm key D, and my tongue is in the right position, that note will pop out right away. So the right position would be in the E position. I'm saying E because my tongue is up really high in my throat. That gets the air going into the saxophone correctly. If my tongue is down low, like I'm playing a low note, but I'm fingering that high D, the high D is going to sound crazy. So I get like that furp sound and some squawks and some weird sounds in there because my tongue is not in the correct position. So if you're getting a squawk or a squeak when you're playing a really low note or a really high note, the first thing you need to think about is your tongue position. Another way that your tongue can cause squeaks is if your tongue and your fingers don't perfectly line up. In other words, you tongue a little bit earlier than your fingers get there. So I'm going to play C, D, E, F. That sounds clean, but if my tongue gets there a little bit early, I'm going to get like a little squawk that almost sounds like a grace note. So that's what happens when my tongue gets there a little bit before my fingers. So if your tongue and your fingers aren't perfectly lined up, your saxophone is going to freak out and give you a squawk or a squeak. The last thing that will cause some crazy sounds on your saxophone is your gear, mainly your mouthpiece. If your reed is not lined up perfectly on your mouthpiece, you're going to get all kinds of crazy sounds. So the first thing is if your reed is too low. If your reed is too low, you're not really going to get as many squeaks or squawks, but it's going to be very difficult to play and you're not going to get a good sound. However, if your reed is too high, in other words, it goes a little bit above the tip of the mouthpiece, that is squeak city. You will squeak all over the place. So if you are squeaking a lot and you can't figure out what's going on, take a look at your reed and your mouthpiece and make sure that your reed is lined up perfectly. If it is above the tip of the mouthpiece, you are going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, assuming that your reed is in the correct place, another thing that can cause a lot of havoc on your sound and make you squeak a lot is if you are not using the correct mouthpiece reed setup for your playing level. So if you're a beginner and you have on a more advanced mouthpiece, like say you have a metal mouthpiece with a high baffle, you're not going to be able to control that mouthpiece and you are going to be squeaking like crazy. So if you squeak a lot no matter what you do, you might want to consider getting a more middle of the road mouthpiece like a Meyer 5. And the last thing that could cause some problems is your saxophone itself. Now, your saxophone usually isn't going to cause you to squeak that much, but if something is wrong with your saxophone, you're going to get some weird furps, you're going to get some crazy sounds on certain notes. That's usually pretty easy to figure out because it'll happen on the same note, and you'll oftentimes feel some type of resistance or some kind of thing that makes you realize something is wrong with your saxophone. So the three main things to think about when it comes to squawks and squeaks is, are your fingers going up and coming down really clean? Second, is your tongue in the correct position and hitting the reed at the same time your fingers are moving? And third, is your reed in the right position? If you have those three things down, you still will probably have an occasional squeak or squawk, but they will happen way less often.